Hey guys, and welcome back to a Now for something a little bit different. Here I am with my co-host, Mr. Korean Cool. It's good to see you, my friend. How you
What's
doing?
up?
We got rocking some Yoda. I like it. The Yoda shirt in full effect.
Words of wisdom that a lot of people should pay attention to. Knowledge is knowing tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is you don't put tomatoes in a fruit salad.
I like that. It's good to see you, my friend. Today we're going to talk about a little film from Norway, a little 2003 film called Buddy. You can't really find it on streaming, guys, but you can find it on eBay and Amazon. It's really cheap. I have some interesting things to say about it. I can't wait to hear what you have to say about it. But before we do that, I figure we'll get into what we've been watching, reading, playing, whatever. What have you
Oh
been?
man, so it's been a crazy week, right? Between work, real life stuff. Don't you hate when real life just gets in the way of everything? It's
Oh,
like, come on, don't want to adult. You know what I mean? But squeezed in a couple movies. I think, yeah, definitely one of the movies we went back to was Michael Keaton and Gede Watanabe, Gung Ho.
holy shit, dude. It's so funny you say that because that's one of the things I watched this week.
Are you serious?
Yeah, totally, man.
The man child wants to watch it, so I'm going to watch it again. I don't care. I love that movie. The other thing that we kind of took a chance on, Predator Killer of Killers, that animated movie on Hulu.
Yeah, I remember Troy and Brad and Sammy all got together, I think.
The animation style is fine, right? But I am used to kind of like the DC animation, right? A lot more, fluidity in the movements, not oh, I am seeing like a little robot animation of this stuff. It's like, come on, man.
Yeah.
24 frames per second, people. It had a surprise ending, which kind of had me. I think there's another one, Predators Badlands coming.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Another live action movie, I believe. So,
Very
kind of
cool.
got me in the mood for that. Got a new camera, so trying
Ooh.
to learn a little bit about that because I got it specifically. Well, the primary reason is I just wanted it. This is the one time I will adult and I will make this decision, and this decision is mine because I'm an adult and I want this camera.
Exactly.
But anyway, so yeah, got a new camera. Gonna be little preview, folks. Since I'm going to the Baltimore Comic Con in October, I'm going to be using this camera to get a lot of footage and hopefully get to talk to some people. And as kind of like a bonus episode, right here on this channel. So stay tuned when we announce it. I'm going to throw that episode up, where it's basically welcome to Baltimore. It is definitely one of the biggest East Coast conventions. I'm going to be meeting Michael Bean and his wife. Stay
Nice.
tuned. We're going to be coming up. Well, what about you? You caught
So
anything or?
a handful of things. Well, it's funny. Like I said, I also watched Gung Ho, and the genesis for that was it was honestly because I had seen. I was telling you earlier in the week. I was joking with you. Shout put out used cars on 4K. I don't know if they did it last year or this year. It's a really beautiful transfer. It looks great. It's a movie I haven't seen since I was a kid, so it was almost like a first time watch. So I saw that with Kurt Russell, and that's an earlier Robert Zemeckis film, of course. It's if people haven't seen used cars, I mean, most people have. But basic premise: he works at a used car dealership. The owner, who's a really nice guy, dies, and his brother, who's played by the same actor, by the way, wants to take it over. And of course, Kurt Russell doesn't want that to happen. He basically wants to run to be like a state senator, but he also doesn't want this brother to take over the place. So he promises a mile's worth of cars.
Right.
The daughter does by accident. They manipulate the footage just to say that. So they get caught in a situation where basically they have to come up with a mile's worth of cars, and they get like cars from this Mexican guy. These cars look like they're basically like falling apart, and they have to drive them to the dealership and make it look like they have miles worth of cars. It's a really funny comedy. You forget that how good Kurt Russell effortlessly does comedy. Like people think like The Thing and all the John Carpenter stuff and the action stuff and the dramatic stuff, and obviously people like will always remember a lot of his films that are just, cold stone classics. But this one's an early one, and he's so good at comedy, just straight up comedy. And
Oh
it's
yeah.
also a film with Robert Zemeckis is still doing like really good work. Because like with Zemeckis, I like Zemeckis a lot. I do. But let's face it, he's one of these directors. I think the last 10 years or so, some of his films are interesting, but they just don't have the same staying power like Castaway or Back to the Future or Used Cars, or he has so many cold stone classics, but over the last 10 years he's kind of gone downhill a little bit.
Yeah.
Obviously I saw Gung Ho. I just actually watched that last night. Such a funny movie. And that movie is good because it's comedy, but then it also does sneak in some interesting commentaries about life, the culture clash between the way people think in Japan versus the way they think over here, like the work situation. They value the work more than the family, and like that whole like mentality. And of course, Keaton doing comedy. Keaton, people forget, like he's like Tom Hanks, man. Before he started doing all the dramatic stuff, like he was known for comedy.
Yeah, I mean Michael Keaton and again Gede Watanabe.
Yeah,
If you've
yeah,
never seen Gung Ho, maybe this name will ring a bell because it was just one of the things you just never thought you were going to see on
yeah.
film, where he plays a character called Long Duck Dong.
And what's also great about that movie is I didn't realize that you have an early John Turturro appearance. I didn't even
John
realize
Turturro,
that one movie came out, I think, in '86. I didn't realize
86. Yep.
he was acting that early on in his career.
Oh yeah.
Clint Howard's brother, I think, is in it. Yeah, Clint Howard's brother's in it because Ron Howard, his father, has a little cameo.
Yep.
It's just Mimi Rogers is in it. And yeah, of course, smoking as usual. A lot of good performances. So I basically watched those two movies, and then I saw just some television stuff. I was talking about that Rainmaker show. I watched the new episode of that, and I don't watch a lot of reality TV at all. Reality TV, I can make words, but I do watch Shark Tank, and I love Shark Tank. And of course, the new season showed up. So that was pretty much it for me. So not a heavy week. Like yourself, between work, life, trying to keep my sanity somewhat intact. Keyword somewhat. The stuff I did get in was stuff that I really thoroughly enjoyed. You know what I mean? It wasn't like because I don't like to talk about shit that I hate. I normally avoid it, but
Yeah.
it wasn't a week where I'm like, oh man, this movie was fucking awful.
Yeah. And that's where, for our audience, you guys heard us talk about this before, right? That's kind of the beauty of while we have streaming services, sometimes there are just movies that is not anywhere online for free, or that you'd have to pay a rental fee, but you have a physical copy of it. Gung Ho found the DVD because, cleaning up, I got all these loose CDs and DVDs everywhere. So I'm just finally putting them together. I'm like, huh,
Yeah,
Gung Ho,
yeah.
in you go. So,
Well,
and that's where I say, don't discount your flea markets, your
yeah,
dollar shops, stuff like that. They're great movies out there. They may be streaming, they may not, but again, I'm a physical copy collector because it's just always good to, without having to, drive yourself nuts trying to figure out where it's playing, just
yeah.
grab it, pop it in the player, sit back and relax. You know what I mean?
No, definitely there is a case to be made for physical media, and like you said, you can pick stuff up dirt cheap. Like I was about a month or so ago, my local library had their used book DVD sale,
Yep.
and they were doing like literally 10 cents a movie, and that was Blu-ray or DVD. Now there wasn't the best like pickings, but at 10 cents, it doesn't matter if the movie's garbage. Even if you can use it for a case if you don't like it. You know what I mean? At 10 cents, you can't get shit for 10 cents. You can't get a stick of Bazooka Joe anymore for 10 cents. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, probably couldn't even get it for $1 for that matter. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for real.
So that all brings us to our movie today. We're going to Norway this week. So this week, guys, you get to hear me fuck up some Norwegian names. Get ready for it. Buddy, a little movie from 2003, which is kind of like a you could say it's a romantic comedy, but it's a lot more than that. It's got drama. It's a movie about friendship. There's a lot of elements, and to me, like as a viewer, I like movies that aren't just one thing. Like horror, I love horror films, but I love a horror comedy. Or as we're going to be talking about later on in the month, I'm going to be talking about one of my picks for October is Leprechaun in Space and Jason X, science fiction, horror. I like this film because it has a lot of cool themes. It mixes different things. So yeah, it came out 2003. Like I was mentioning last week's on the tail end of last week's episode, it's released by a small independent company called Film Movement. They basically have a subscription service where you sign up, they send you a feature film, and they also send you an independent short film. The independent short film on this way, by the way, if anyone ever gets a chance, if you pick up the disc, it's called, I think it's Ninja Pays Half the Rent. It's a ridiculous comedy about having a ninja for a roommate. It's only about 4 minutes. It's really, really funny. I won't get into it, but if you do pick up the physical disc, check that out. So yeah, it's directed by a guy named Morten Tyldum. This guy actually would go on to some other stuff. Like I'm going to get into his resume in a little bit, but he would go on to do The Imitation Game in 2015 with Mr. Benedict Cumberland, which was a nominee for an Oscar. So he started off doing a lot of stuff in his native country of Norway, and then would move on to work with Hollywood on quite a few different projects. You might think of stuff like I said, The Imitation Game, Passengers with Chris Pratt and Jennifer Lawrence. He did a movie called Headhunters, which came out in 2011, which looks really, really good. It's on Tubi, which also stars one of the actors in this film, by the way. He worked on the Amazon Prime series, Tom Clancy's Jack Ryan. And then he also worked on the television show, I think it's an Apple show, which I have not seen, a sci-fi show called Silo, something called Defending Jacob. I guess they're making it into a TV series, Cape Fear. It's going to be coming out. Yeah, I know, right? I was kind of shocked by that one. You had the Robert De Niro one was the only one I've seen. And
Right.
that was a remake. I've never seen the original. And then the other, yeah, he's doing that. And he's got something else, a movie coming called Pattern Recognition. Turning things over to our writer, we have a guy named Lars Gudmastad. He's worked on the film Headhunters, the film Betrayed, an anthology film called The Seven Deadly Sins. Brings us over to our cinematographer. We have a guy named John Andreas Anderson. He worked on a film called that he also, believe it or not, co-directed with one of our stars. And he worked on films like Headhunters, a film called Cold Lunch, and a film called All That Matters Is the Past. A lot of these films are films from Norway. So again, unless you guys are someone that's a big fan of like Norwegian films in particular, you might not be overly familiar with behind the scenes, but that's okay. These are some things you can look for. Then we have our editor. He's a gentleman named Eli Nielsen. Eli's worked on a bunch of stuff here. Now, here's some stuff you might be familiar with. He's worked on stuff like NYPD Blue.
Correction. Ellie. She's female.
Oh,
Editor's female.
excuse me. Thank you.
Yeah. No worries. No worries. It's Norwegian.
Yeah,
it just it happens.
And my ability to mispronounce things, especially with, you know what I mean? I could totally be getting. So yeah, Ellie Nielsen, editor, worked on stuff like NYPD Blue, The Closer, Criminal Minds, Bridgerton, and Empire. That's just a handful of the names that, again, stuff that you guys might be familiar with.
And I'm sorry, I throw this one in because she actually did a pretty good job as the editor. I'm not sure exactly how much but remember the Get Shorty TV series?
That was really good, man. Yeah.
Yeah. She was the editor on that series as well.
I actually like the TV show more than I like the movies. Not that the movie's bad, but I think the TV show was great.
Yeah, it was really, really good. It was really good.
So that's our editor. Moving on to our music, we have our composer, Lars Lilo Stenberg. Again, a lot of foreign films, stuff like a film called Elling in 2001, Love Me Tomorrow, something called Mother's Elling in 2003. A lot of the other stuff on his resume, unfortunately, like I said, is a lot of films that are foreign films. That's our main people behind the scenes. Now, when we get into our cast, again, probably aren't familiar with these names, but I'm going to throw them out there anyway. One of our lead roles is a gentleman, Nikolai Cleve Brock. He's playing the role of Kristoffer Hawkland. He's been in some interesting stuff. He's been in a film called which is directed by Mr. Askell Hennie, which I'll talk about in a second. He's been in a film called Cold Lunch, Betrayed, a TV show that said it was on HBO, but it's not, called Beforeigners. He's playing our main role of Kristoffer. I'm just going to cheat and call him Kristoff to make it a little bit easier. Next, playing his best friend, who's kind of like a skateboard daredevil type, Askell Hennie. He's playing the role of Geir. He's also a director. Like I said, he directed and wrote that movie that I mentioned in 2004. He also directed a film TV series, called Stayer. And then when we get to his acting credits, He's been in a decent amount of stuff. He's been in stuff like that movie Headhunters I mentioned. He was in the Hercules movie with Dwayne Johnson in 2014. He pops up in there. The Martian with Mr. Matt Damon. Last Night.
Matt Damon.
Exactly. He pops up in the Cloverfield Paradox. He pops up in that film Sisu. And our mutual friend of the show, Dave Gray from Raiders of the Podcast, told me I would like an animated movie that he does called Spermageddon. And well, you know that. Notice that title. I'm like, where can I find this? I must watch this animated film.
You do that, you gotta do it back to back. Watch Spermageddon and then watch that movie Teeth.
That seems to have a female audience, and I wonder why.
Ooh.
They seem to be more pro that movie. I watched that movie and I think I had nightmares for a couple of days, you know. So yeah, this guy, I think of all the cast members, he seems to be the one that has transitioned more into, I guess, somewhat more of a mainstream audience.
He's had a lot more crossover, continental crossover, right? A lot of European stuff. Seeing him in Buddy, as soon as I saw his face, I was like, "That's the dude in Sisu." I was like, "Oh my god, he was in Paradox." Yeah. Oh my god, yeah. It started going down a little bit of a rabbit hole, like digging into him. So the ability to go cross continents and get into some bigger name movies, I to his credit, he's a really good actor. I do like him.
Yeah, he plays a really good supporting role. I think. Well, not to give
there you go.
Moving on to playing the role of Stig Inge, we have an actor named Anders Bassemo. He's a roommate of our two characters. A nice guy, a bit of an eccentric, known as a character actor over in Norway. And he pops up. If you look at his filmography, he has a ton of stuff. A movie called Kon-Tiki in 2012, something called The Arctic Convoy in 2023, Nord in 2009, and my favorite title, because it's got the word fuck in it, something called The Fuck Up in 2012. Playing the role of the girlfriend, we have an actress named Jen Formeau. She plays the role of Elizabeth. She, again, another actor, doesn't transition too much over to Hollywood or anything like that. Mostly a Norwegian actor. A lot of television stuff, like a TV show called Dirty Money, White Lies, something called Hotel Caesar, something called Far Far, and then another show called Nest Summer. Playing the role of Henriette, we have an actress named Pia Tasjelte, I want to say. Hopefully I got that right. Hold on one second. She's been in films like Mongoland in 2001, Cold Lunch in 2008, 90 Minutes, Now It's Dark, Diorama, State of Happiness, which is a TV show, and Don't Call Me Mama in 2025. That's pretty much the cast. And like I said, guys, definitely check this one out, and check some of these actors out, because I think it's worth broadening your horizons. Like me and Mr. Cool here, I like to consider as people that have seen a lot of different films from a lot of different places, a lot of different countries. These people really have done some really amazing work, and you're not familiar with it because, let's face it, in Hollywood, we're pushing the Hollywood films. You know what I mean?
Yeah, to your point, I'll have to say this is also the end result of what Hollywood has been doing, right?
Yeah.
A lot of foreign international movies are coming to the fruition, and the more you kind of shy away from the Hollywood stuff, right? Because it's recycled, sometimes hot garbage.
Yeah.
Sorry, you're gonna find those niche films, those niche markets, those niche movie makers that all of us are like, wow, that was pretty good. Yeah, I had to read a lot of captions, but overall the movie was pretty good.
Absolutely.
So just because it's an international film doesn't mean you shouldn't give it a shot, right?
Yeah.
Yes, like Hollywood, there's not a lot of great stuff.
Yeah.
And there's a handful of good stuff, but there's even fewer amazing things out there, right? But you're never going to find them unless you're willing to take a chance and go out and check them out.
Well, you're basically just giving yourself more options, right? So like going to the library, right? You could go to like a little mom and pop bookstore that only has a couple hundred books, and that's a lot of options. But you can go to like a library or a bigger bookstore, and you got a whole bunch of options, right? You got tons of options. With all that said, I guess I'll get into our script. Our film opens up, and we're introduced to right off the get-go, we're introduced to a character named Kristoffer. I'm going to just call him Kristoff and cheat a little, just shorten it a little bit. He's a young guy in his 20s, and he's in his bed, and he's right off the get-go, he's complaining about how his girlfriend Elizabeth complains that he snores too much, and he says, she doesn't know what she's talking about. And we open it up and we see it like almost from the perspective of like almost like a mini DV camera, because this movie came out in 2003. So right about that time, maybe slightly before, the little digital cameras were just becoming a thing. And he decides to set up a camera. And of course, he falls asleep, and of course he's snoring like a bear. So right off the get-go, that's out the window. We cut to our next scene, and then we're introduced to his best friend Geir, who's a 20-something skater, daredevil type. These guys like to just fuck around, make videos, goof off. You can tell these guys are best friends. They make these little videos together. They move into a new apartment, and this is when we're introduced to another character. We're introduced to a character of Stig Inge. And Stig Inge is a very shy, quirky guy. He's a web designer. He lives by himself, and he's very neat. But he's just a really nice guy. They joke about how he's so impeccably clean. It's like moving into like an old lady's place, basically. Because it's like, most guys in their early 20s, are slobs. Let's face it. Basically, we cut to, like I said, we're seeing these guys just doing jokes and pranks with their video camera, doing stuff like riding a shopping cart through a parking lot. Then we see a scene of like forgetting their keys to the apartment. So Geir decides to scale the building, and he's doing some parkour shit where he's climbing. he's scaling the building to get to their apartment, So and then we see them like just fucking around with Stig Inge, like doing stuff like moving little things in the apartment just to fuck with him. So one morning, we see our main character, Kristoffer, and he's with his girlfriend, Elizabeth, and he's getting out of bed, and they had a blissful night, and she's about ready to head to work, and he's about ready to head to work. And she's like, hey, I think you should have these. These are keys to my apartment. And he gets that look on his face, that dreaded, like, oh, that look that says more than anything that needs to be said, which is that like, oh shit, look, she wants to take things a little bit more seriously, apparently, Later that morning, we see Kristoffer and Geir, and they're heading to work, and they basically put billboards up. They're the people that take down the billboards and put up new advertisements, and they're driving to work, and all of a sudden, Geir, who's driving the car, ducks down, and his friend looks at him. Kristoffer's looking like, what are you doing, man? And then we see this young, attractive, blonde-haired girl across the street. After she leaves, he gets back up. And then he asks his friend, he's like, what's up with that? And he's like, oh, he blows him off. He's like, oh, it's no big deal. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. And then they get back to the conversation about Elizabeth. And he's like, she wants to move things too quick. Right now, things are perfect. We go to the movies. We have a good time. I like her a lot, but I don't want keys to her apartment, and, before you know it, she's going to want keys to our apartment. That big step if you're a young guy, and he basically says he likes the way things are. Maybe they're just moving a little too fast, Geir says, well, you know what, dude, don't even worry about it, man. If it means that much to you, just such a casual thing, just lose the keys, that's one way to avoid the problem. Just say you lost them. And he's like, well, I can't do that. And he's like, okay, well then just go ahead and talk to her. They happen to be putting this billboard sign up, and they see this huge dumpster, and there's looks like some
foam mattresses.
Yeah, like foam mattresses in the dumpster. And because these guys are kind of like, I wouldn't say they're like a low rent jackass, because that's insulting. I don't want to say that. But like, yeah, well, it'd be great to see if we can jump and land on that thing and not kill ourselves. So of course, being like, because that's the mentality. So Geir, being like the more daredevilish of the two, they both sneak into this building. Apparently, it's a cable building. They do like TV station kind of stuff, and it's being worked on. So we follow our two guys, and he jumps into the dumpster, and he pulls it off and not manages to kill himself. But as he's doing this, they realize the security guard it's just been brought to the security guard's attention. And as he's being chased out the building, he doesn't realize it, but we see 3 of his little cassette tapes, his little tapes from a video camera, fall onto the floor. I would do something like that, and I'd probably end up in a fucking paralyzed for the rest of my life, because I have no coordination, and I also don't like heights, man. There's very few things that I don't like outwardly hate, but I really do not like heights. It just scares the shit out of me. You know what I mean?
Well,
So
I'll just say, and maybe one day if I've been drinking before we've done one of our episodes,
uh,
I can honestly sit here and say, and maybe some folks in the audience can relate. I honestly do not know how I am still alive with some of the stuff, some of the stupid shit we used to do. So
Oh
you're
yeah.
afraid of heights? There used to be times where, as kids, we'd climb up onto like a two-story rooftop
Mhm.
and jump off. Don't ask me why. We
Yeah.
just did it. We'd climb trees and jump down from trees. Don't ask me why. We did it. I mean, there's just been, we played that game where, you hide in the woods, car comes driving down the road, and you haul ass across the road, try to make them to stop. Yeah,
Mhm.
we did that too. I mean, there's just been so much, their stuff is kind of tame to your point.
Yeah.
But it's like, yeah, you have some crazy folks and, some of the stuff that me, my brother, and several of our friends, what we used to do. Wow.
Yeah, it's funny for me. Like when I was younger, I didn't have an issue with it. We did a lot of dumb shit like you. Like I remember, like there was this water, this lake, and there was like these cliffs. I remember jumping from that into the water when I was younger, and like I remember doing stuff like there was this sewer. They were working on the sewer, and we remember going in there and like with our flashlights and doing like a little like pretending like it was like a cave adventure, like we were exploring.
Yeah.
Dude, I remember like doing shit like sneaking into the movies. Like one person would buy a ticket and then he would go to the exit door and then crack open the door. That's how I saw Jason Takes Manhattan because we were too
Yeah.
young to see it. We were in like seventh or eighth grade, and we didn't get caught. We got lucky. But
Yeah, you got lucky.
a lot of dumb shit like that. I remember
Yeah.
doing. Here's one for you. In the summertime, none of us had a pool, but we lived in a town where the next town over there was like a very tourist attraction beach, so a lot of stuff like that. So there were a lot of hotels. I remember sneaking into the hotel, and then whenever a lifeguard asked, we'd be like, "Oh yeah, we're in like room 122." And we used the hotel pool because we were two suburban friends that our families couldn't afford an in-ground or an above-ground pool. And when it got hot out, you got inventive and you found like dumb shit. So
Especially when it comes to pools, because remember, pools are inviting. So it invited me over. What else do you want me to do? I got to jump in, swim, whatever. Go to room 122, whatever. Leave me
exactly.
alone.
They didn't catch on until like the third week in a row. They're like, "You're still here? And what room did you say where you were
We
in?"
really like this hotel.
Finally, Kristoffer realizes that he has to get aggressive and kind of tell Elizabeth, like, hey, you're going too fast, lady. So shows up at her job and they're introduced to her boss, who's like a real prick, a guy named Nikolai. And he also thinks, oh, yeah, the plumbing issues over there. And finally, his girlfriend Elizabeth comes out and she's in a meeting and she's like, what are you doing here? He's like, I really need to talk to you about something. So he pulls her to the side and basically he's like, I like you a lot. I like spending time with you and stuff like that. But I think we just might be moving a little bit too fast here. He says, I don't know if I'm ready to have keys to your apartment quite yet. And, she does that passive aggressive thing. I hate to say, oh, I'm okay with it. Yeah, sure. And we'll talk later on. And he says, oh, shit, I forgot the keys. She's like, don't worry, I'll bring them by later on. But she does that thing, that passive aggressive thing where they tell you one thing, but they mean something else completely.
Yeah.
Uh, and so he leaves, and the boys get back home. As they're getting home, they see their roommate Stig, and they see something kind of unusual. He's trying to walk in, but he drops his grocery bag, and some of the stuff rolls out past the apartment complex, and the stuff that rolls out past the apartment complex he doesn't pick up, and they kind of just look at him for a second, and Geir goes over and he picks it up and he's, oh, here you go, man. You forgot this stuff. You just dropped it. And so right off the get go, we're kind of establishing something that will become a pattern with this guy, Stig, who's a very nice guy. Later that night, Elizabeth shows up and basically she tells Kristoff, she basically says, hey, listen, you're a nice guy and I like you a lot, but I don't think this relationship's going anywhere. You can't even handle having like the keys to my apartment. She kind of like tries to let him down gently, but you can see he's kind of hurt. He chases after her, and he gets outside, and he sees that she's being picked up by her boss, this guy Nikolai, who I hate to say he's the arch type, douchebaggish type character. Over the course of the next couple of days, we see things like him trying to call her at work, and then basically this guy Nikolai picks up and says, "Hey, listen, stop calling here. Otherwise, you're not going to like what happens." He gets a little bit threatening. He tries to call her. He's trying to get through her to kind of like reconnect because he felt like, he liked this girl. And as he's trying to make a call, we see a young redhead, also in her early 20s, very attractive, walk in, and she's having a conversation with Stig. And he's a little bit annoyed because he's heartbroken and he's trying to make this phone call. And basically, we find out that they have a mutual friend, and that's the younger sister. And basically, this character, Henriette, is just staying with them for a few weeks before her and her boyfriend go on a big trip, a big sailing trip around the world. She's like one of those tomboy type girls, like she's one of the guys type of girls. She jokes around. She also makes a comment about how the place is so clean, you would think 3 girls live here. So he's still upset. He's a little bit annoyed because nobody told him this girl was going to be moving in, but whatever, he gets over it. She invites them all to a party because she has her boyfriend's throwing a party and having some people over and stuff. And I guess it's kind of a way to break the ice and kind of get to know people better. As they're getting to go on the subway, Stig all of a sudden has a look on his face and he's like, oh shit, I think I left the oven on. So he goes back to the house and he doesn't go to the party. Henriette's like, well, why don't we call him when we get to the party to let him know the address so that he can come over. And the boys basically tell him it's not going to happen. That's his personality. They get to the apartment and we meet Henriette's boyfriend, Dag, who's a very nice guy, I guess, but a little bit, vanilla, if you will, And basically, while they're there at this party, by some coinky-dink, unfortunately, I guess Dag knows Elizabeth and Nikolai, and they're both there. And Kristoffer goes to try to talk to Elizabeth, and he's just barely getting into the conversation. And the next thing you know, of course, this guy shows up, Nikolai, and he sees him talking, and he's like, what are you, stalking this girl? Like, what are you doing at the party, man? And he's like, no, it's just coincidence. I had no idea she was going to be here, We see the next day that the guys are kind of doing their work, putting up the billboards in the rain, having this conversation with Geir. He gets a phone call. It's the local TV station where they did that stunt earlier, where they jumped out the building and landed on these mattresses. And they basically want to talk. And then we see Kristoffer, and he's at the cable station, and he meets an executive there, a guy named Anders. And Anders works for a late night talk show called Carson Tonight. He said that they found the videos, and he thinks it would make for a great segment during the show. He just has to talk to his boss, Carson, thinks that would be a great idea. So they're excited. So they're introduced to the host, Carson. Carson basically asked him, he said, I like the videos a lot. He said, the only concern I have the only concern I have is that Stig guy. I'm sure he's a really nice guy, but it looks like he seems like a nervous fellow. Do you think he can handle being on TV? Do you think it might be too much for him? And he said, is he acting? And Kristoffer doesn't say no, but he also doesn't say yes. He just kind of goes with, he's like, oh, yeah, sure, yeah, he's acting. He agrees. Yeah, he's just goofing around. We cut to a few days later, and the segment premieres on the show. We see the boys having fun, and afterwards, Henriette and the boys are about to catch a premiere to the show. Like, basically, it's an after party kind of thing. And as the train pulls up again, we see that he's nervous. Stig, excuse me. And this time, Henriette, gives him a way out. Basically, she says to him, he's like, oh, you know what? I think I forgot to lock the door. Someone should probably go and check to be certain. And of course, Stig leaps at the opportunity because this is his out. He says, oh, yeah, I'll go do that. You guys go enjoy the party. At the party, Carson notices Stig isn't there. They're introduced to a character named Frode. Frode is kind of like a short, nervous guy around their age, trying to be an aspiring stand-up comedian. He basically tells him, he's like, I really love what you guys did. He's like, I'm trying to be a stand-up comedian. I have a show where I'm going to be doing like an open mic night. It's going to be my premiere. I'd love for you guys to go. So we cut to the next day, and the guys are putting together a billboard. While they're putting up the billboard, Kristoffer is basically recording some kids. They're just, fucking around, playing soccer. Kristoffer gets involved in the soccer game. And then at a certain point, we see a young blonde lady, named Lear. And again, that character is someone that we'll recognize as audience members because she showed up earlier in the film when he was in the car and Geir ducked down. So we know there's a connection between Geir and this girl. And then she goes to pick up one of the kids, who's a young blonde-haired boy, which remarkably looks a lot like Geir. This freaks Geir out. And he's like in a big rush to leave. He tells them they have to go now. They can't hang around. He's really upset. As they're driving, they see a huge building being built, and there's a huge construction scaffolding on top. So of course, this gives Gear an opportunity to, I guess, work out some of his frustrations and his nerves. So Gear decides to scale this huge scaffolding, and then when he gets up there, he does like this thing, like this acrobat thing, where he's kind of like hanging off and he's joking around. And at one point, he almost slips, but he catches himself. This is a little bit too much. And even Kristoffer's like, "Hey, dude, come on, get down. You're going to end up hurting yourself. There's something bad can happen." They get home that night, and we see Stig and Henriette, and they're making dinner for the night. Stig goes to do something. I guess the doorbell rings, and Kristoffer makes dinner with Henriette. We kind of see some chemistry between the two, and we see them connecting. Of course, just like anything else in life, just when things seem to be a little bit too good to be true, and Elizabeth shows up, and she basically gets the car keys, or not the car keys, the apartment keys, because she didn't get them the last time she was there for some reason. He's there, he talks to her, and he's like, "Are you with that guy at work, Nikolai?" And she's like, "I was with him, but things didn't work out." A few days later, at the apartment, the blonde girl shows up again, Lear. She wants to talk to Gear, and again, Gear's very upset by this. He's asking, "Why are you here? What are you doing at my apartment? What do you want?" And she's like, "Well, I'm here because your son, Morten, by the way, saw the segment on television, and he recognized you from the park, and he noticed us staring at each other, and he wants to know who you were. So of course, I told him who you were, but now he wants to know what's going on." And he basically tells her to leave. She tells him he hasn't changed at all, and she finally leaves. Obviously, he's not handling responsibility. Obviously, he's not doing the right thing. He's not being a stand-up guy. The next day, Henriette, Kristoffer, and Gear surprise Stig with a big surprise birthday party. The whole neighborhood comes out, and they celebrate, and it's a big bash. Kristoffer is recording the event, and we see more flirting with him and Henriette. And we have a moment where he talks to Gear, and Gear finally opens up about Lear. He tells Kristoffer, he's like, "Hey, I met her at a party. She was 16. We were both young. We hooked up. I offered to help pay for the abortion, and she didn't want that. But I'm not ready to be a dad." And Kristoffer tries to kind of reassure him and go like, "Hey, dude, I think you'd be a great dad. I think honestly, your personality, I could see you hanging out, going skiing, teaching the kids skateboarding. I think you're selling yourself short, and you're not giving this kid a chance who's your kid." And he's trying to like kind of push him in the right direction in a way that's not forceful, but just like, hey, sometimes things in life happen, and you got to kind of step up the plate, and you got to be responsible. You don't want to be that guy. You know what I mean? Frode. He's also at this black party for Stig. He gives them an invite to his open mic night premiere for his comedy routine. Gear notices Kristoffer staring at Henriette from a distance, and he says, you gave me advice. Now it's my turn to give you advice. You got to step up to the plate. He said, it's just like table hockey. To win, you have to let go of the goal and attack with both hands. Basically, Kristoffer slow dances with Henriette. They talk a little bit. She basically tells him, "Hey, this is really great that what you did for Stig." And he calls you his best friend. He thinks he's your best friend. They're having a moment. They go back to the apartment, and at first it doesn't happen, but then they end up hooking up, and sleeping together. So we cut to the next morning. We hear the doorbell ring. And Henriette, books out of his room into her room, and lo and behold, at the door is her boyfriend Dag, here to pick her up, because they're going to be going to the dock to get his sailboat ready for the big world trip. And Kristoffer tries to talk to her. He's like, can we talk about things? And she's like, there's nothing to talk about. It meant nothing to me. At this point, Kristoffer is kind of like hurt for the second time. Maybe the first time, Elizabeth had some points, but this time he put his heart out with this girl he thought he had chemistry with, and now he's being the one that's getting basically the equivalent of having his keys traded in. So he's getting a taste of what it's like. He comes home, Kristoffer, from work, and on his way home in the park, he sees a young kid kind of just sitting right outside the apartment complex of where he lives. The young kid, of course, is Morten, Gear's young son. and he's just sitting there, and he invites him inside the apartment, and of course, what we expect is going to happen happens. He brings him in the apartment with a soccer ball, and Geir absolutely freaks out. He's not yelling at the kid, but you can see he's disturbed by this whole situation. And again, Kristoffer is trying to kind of walk him off the ledge, if you will. He's kind of like trying to kind of say, "Hey, dude, well, can we at least give the kid a ride home?" And he gives him a ride home. He drops him off, and again, because Kristoffer's always recording things, we see the kid walking back into his apartment. That kid's a pretty cool son you got there. And for the first time, Geir kind of smiles. The gears are going in Geir's head. Maybe there's something more. Maybe I should step up. That's what we kind of infer as an audience member, or at least I did. Next week, we see Kristoffer, and he goes to see his buddy Frode do his stand-up routine. And Frode, real nice guy. Again, like Stig, real nice guy, but also a nervous fellow. And he's doing this open mic stand-up, and unfortunately, he's not very good at all. It's nerves. You can see him like he's trying to make like an awkward joke, but it's not even like a funny awkward joke. It's just a bad joke. And while he's there, the producer that he met for the show, Anders, is there, and he's like, "Hey, the footage we've been showing on the show, on the segments, is great, but we're out of footage. Do you have anything on you that we can use?" And not even thinking, Kristoffer goes, "Oh, here's a couple tapes that I shot recently." Also, while he's there, he invites him to a screening of a show that's going to take place at the host apartment, Carson's apartment. Also at this comedy show happens to be Elizabeth. Elizabeth is there, and he has like a heart-to-heart with her, and basically she tells him a little bit more about things with Nikolai. She basically tells him that like Nikolai was using her, basically making her do all of his work. They were dating, but she found out he was married with 2 kids, and she even made him babysit. Like we thought earlier, like I said, he's kind of a douchey guy. They end up kissing, end up making out, and then of course Kristoffer, in this moment of depression or sadness or whatever you want to call it, ends up back at his apartment, and they end up sleeping with each other. They kind of just resume their relationship like the breakup had never happened almost. Not always the best advice, guys. Sometimes, even though you want to get laid, sometimes if you break up, sometimes it's good to break up and split. Yeah, clean split. He wakes up the next morning. We see Kristoffer in the kitchen. The doorbell rings, and it's Henriette, and she's there. A couple of days have gone past. She's like, "Listen, I've been hurt in the past. I shouldn't have just left abruptly like I did. Hopefully we can talk." At this point, Elizabeth walks out into the kitchen, and she's wearing nothing but a t-shirt that belongs to him. Of course, Henriette sees that, and of course, she just gets a look on her face, and she just says, "Oh, well, I just had to stop by from the apartment and pick up a couple things. I'm going to leave now. I'll see you guys later." Again, you could see just when things might have possibly gone to happen, they don't, for obvious reasons. Next night, Kristoffer goes to the screening of the newest episode at Carson's house. And of course, what he doesn't realize is the footage that they're showing tonight is a bunch of different things. But one of the things is the part where Geir is dropping his son off at the apartment and, basically acknowledging that's his son and he's a cool kid. Kristoffer did not realize that was going to be shown. He didn't put any thought into it. He just handed the producer Anders, the footage. And his first instinct is, "Hey, I need to go over there and do damage control." But he's there with Elizabeth, and Elizabeth tells him, "You got to be professional. This is a business. Geir will still be there. You can go after the meeting, but that's not important." So he's putting the priority of business before friendship. And this guy's his best friend. So I have a handful of friends that I would consider just genuinely good friends, genuinely deep, strong friendships that I actually cherish. And it's never good to put business before friendship. That's just my own perspective. Afterwards, he gets home, and of course, Geir's pissed. He's like, "I told you about my relationship with this girl, this hookup with this girl, this kid in confidence, and here I am, I'm watching television, and it shows up on the newest episode. And even worse than that, 2 hours later, you come home. It's like, do you even give a shit about our friendship?" At this point, Kristoffer's got his foot in his mouth, and he's trying to, apologize and smooth things over. Geir's like, "No, dude, I'm done with you. I'm done with your shit. I don't want to have anything to do with the show. There's a divide in the friendship. Kristoff then goes to talk to Stig Inge, and he says, "Listen, I apologize if they showed you in a negative light on the television show. I didn't mean to hurt your feelings." And Stig Inge is like, "Oh, no, that's okay, man. It's okay. It's like those things that they showed, that was me. That was just acting. That wasn't me for real. That was just me joking around and playing to the camera. He's trying to cover up. It's very clear if you're watching the film up to this point. It's very clear that he does have this issue, and lots of people have lots of different fears. From there, we see Kristoff the next day. Again, he's trying to patch things up with people. He goes to visit Henriette at the boat with a bottle of shampoo. She says, "No, that's not even my bottle of shampoo. It must be Elizabeth's when she left it over." What was that with the TV premiere last night where the host was saying that he was basically just acting? And he's like, "What's that all about?" He wasn't acting. Obviously, he does have a fear. And he basically admits like he did it because he wanted to procure the show. Like this was a big opportunity. And he feels guilty about it. And, she questions him and his motives as far as being a friend. She's like, "How can you call yourself a friend and then use your friend?" And he's like, "Yeah, I know. I feel horrible about it. I'm going to actually over to the studio now to kind of fix things." So he heads over to the studio and we talked to Anders, the studio producer, and basically Anders says, "Oh, well, I just talked to Stig Inge this morning, actually." And Stig Inge, Carson wants to have him on, you and him on the show tonight, and for an interview. And Stig Inge said, "No problem, I'll be there, no problem." Kristoff is very shocked by this because he knows his friend, and he knows his friend has this fear. So he gets home and he double checks with Stig Inge. He's like, "Are you sure you feel comfortable doing this? We don't have to do this, man. I completely understand." Stig Inge again says, No, I'm okay with it, man. I'm okay." They get to the subway. You could see Stig Inge. He's just like sweating bullets. He's incredibly nervous. Kristoff's like, "Hey, dude, we can just go home, dude, man. We'll go home, rent some videos, hang out, have a guys' night." And Stig pretty much breaks down. It seems like he's having a nervous breakdown. And he's saying, "You know what?" He's like, "I'm scared." He's like, he says, I hate the neighborhood we live in, the Toy-In Center. He's like, I would love to go out and see more of the world, more of the city. I'm scared." He's like, "I don't know why. I'm embarrassed. I just want to be normal." He's like, "I just want to be friends with you and Geir." And he ends up stumbling onto the subway. And of course, the door is shut before Kristoff can get there. Right across on the other side of the subway, we see Henriette. And her and Kristoff both kind of look at each other. They realize they have to do something. We cut to Stig Inge, and he's on the subway. And again, it's very visible. He's having like this breakdown, and he's just sweating bullets. Everyone's just looking at him. And eventually, like a ticket taker comes up to him and he says, "Hey, listen, dude, if you don't have a ticket, you have to get off." So he gets off. And of course, who's there but Elizabeth? Because Elizabeth was supposed to meet them at the subway station and give them a ride to the TV studio. So she gives him a ride. She asks him, "Where's Kristoff?" And he can barely mutter anything, so he doesn't have an answer for her. We cut to, Geir, and he's at the apartment, and the doorbell rings, and Lyra, the blonde girl, and his son Morten are downstairs, and basically they're there to get the soccer ball that Morten left at the apartment. He talks to them. He says, "Listen, if it's all right with you, Morten can maybe hang around the apartment for a couple hours." So we see him kind of evolving a little bit. He's kind of warming up a little bit. Basically, they end up hanging out and stuffing themselves with candy and watching TV. And basically, a kid falls asleep on the couch and he ends up staying over for the night, effectively. So we kind of see him manning up a little bit, becoming more of what he should have been, which right off the get-go, which is just becoming a father, doing the right thing. While this is all going on, Henry and Kristoff, after looking for our friend Stig Inge, show up at the studio. He asks Stig Inge, he's like, "We don't have to do this. We can leave." But Elizabeth, "I'm the person that ushers people in, and we got to get you on because your segment's going to show up." At this point, our host Carson tries to make conversation with Stig Inge and get him to open up, and he's just sitting there in a corner with his head down, and again, he's sweating and he's nervous. Kristoff, as his friend, is seeing this unfold in front of his eyes, and he's like, "No, we just got to leave. We got to leave." He tries to think of something that might get him to get up and help him a little bit. And then he just starts singing like a theme song to a soccer team that they both liked, the local soccer team called Ham Cam. And he kind of sings this song and just to kind of coax him to get up. And then he gets up and they both leave. And as they're leaving, Elizabeth says, "Oh, I'm sorry, things didn't go well. I'll be over Later on tonight, Henrietta sees that. What she doesn't see, because she leaves, Kristoff basically tell her, it's like, listen, I don't think that's a good idea. I'm in love with someone else, and I don't think this is going to work. At this point, we see Stig and we see our man Kristoff, and they end up walking home together, and they just basically talking, and Kristoff telling him like, "Hey, I'm here for you, dude. And I'll always be your friend, and we're here to support you. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry that if you felt like kind of pressured to do this." Nicely enough, Stiggins runs into a girl from a computer class that he took, and you see like some chemistry between them. So the guys get home. Basically, Kristoff again apologizes to Geir. He manages to smooth things over. Their friendship is a little bit more concrete again. Basically, he goes to bed. He wakes up, and Stiggin just kind of like, "Hey, get up, get up." And he's like, "What, dude? What do you want?" And he's like, "Well, Henrietta, she's leaving on our trip today." And he's like, "You have to do something." He's like, "What do you want me to do, man? She's with this guy, Dag. It's not happening." But he's like, "No, dude, you can't just sit there and just let this happen. You obviously have feelings for this girl." They get in their little car and they head towards the dock. And while this is going on, we see Henrietta and Dag, and they're in their car, and they're also heading to the dock. They see some billboards that have like signs. Like one sign says, "Henrietta, don't leave. Give him another chance." And she's just looking at that like, "What?" And then one says, "Your love is like a beautiful rose." And like little goofy, romantic, silly things. And her boyfriend Dax, like, who would write this up here? Like, what product are they even advertising for? Like, what's this all about? They arrive at the docks, and Kristoff runs the boat to get her attention, and he's like, "Listen, you need to stay and let's figure things out." She replies, "Well, it's going to end like it always does." And she's like, "Well, what does that mean?" He's like, "You're answering your own question by leaving. You're not going to know how things work out." So he manned up. He took his chance to try to like get things going with this girl and maybe really connect and have something real with her. And she just basically rejected him. So he goes back up to his friends. They're about to leave. And Gear says, "Hey, dude, you got to remember, sometimes you just got to, again, let go of the goalie and attack with both hands." So, of course, we get like this romantic gesture, or he goes to the end of the dock and he runs to her and says, like, "I love you." And he jumps into the water, and we see her tell Dag, "Hey, have a good trip." And she jumps into the water. They kiss. We close with them getting in the back of the car. They're just sitting in the back of the car with overalls because they're both soaking wet, and they kiss, and we get our little like happy bow ending. The romance aspect, obviously, we've seen a lot of that kind of romantic comedy drama stuff before, but I like this movie because it's got more layers than just that. I don't love this movie, but I do think this is a really good movie. But I'll get a little more into that in a second. Were you familiar with the directors? Have you seen Passengers, or what's the other one? The other
Oh yeah, Passengers.
Benedict
Yeah,
Cumberland, or the Benedict Cumberland one?
there's nothing like some honesty here, right?
Yeah,
Buddy, as a first time watch, okay, it was fine. It was a
yeah,
good movie, right? It definitely reminded me of a lot of other elements of the friendships, as the base story, and then circumstances dictate action, and actions dictate in consequences, and so on and so forth. And this was kind of like a Norwegian version of that. I will say though, the sequel to this movie I thought was so much better. I don't know if you even knew there was a sequel.
no, I did not.
Yeah, 2011, apparently the friends, after they get Henrietta,
Mm.
they leave Norway and they go to Antarctica to start a science expedition that goes kind of bad when they find something in the ice and they bring it back to base camp.
Sounds like a John Carpenter film. Oh,
Them damn Norwegians. Oh my God. So, no, in all seriousness, there was no sequel. But he does a nice job in telling a story about friendship, right? And the different layers of it. Kristoffer.
yeah,
He is he's an opportunistic, I guess you want to say, in some layers, a narcissist, in the sense that he doesn't see where he does anything wrong, right? Let's start with the breakup with Elizabeth, right? Oh, I don't, this is going too fast. I want to, I want to get out of this. How do I do this?
yeah,
Oh, Henrietta, we just did the nasty back there. Why are you still leaving me? Oh, what do you mean? I gave him the footage. I didn't know it was gonna air. Come on, dude. You know, that aspect of friendship, it's always good to have friends, of course. Friends need to know their limits, right? And understand that there's just sometimes you can joke, you can play around, but then when you start interfering with people's lives, then that's kind of a line you should start regretting that you crossed. Gear, I found definitely probably the most convincing in terms of portrayal of as a young person, not even a young man or a young woman, as a young person, you enjoy that freedom, right? The ability not to have to answer for anything outside of what you want to answer for.
Mm.
So being thrown into a situation where you got a kid out there, that's a scary situation,
Yeah.
right?
Oh,
Because
absolutely.
you're barely understanding how you're taking care of yourself, and you're getting through the days the way you get through the days, right, on your own terms. But then when you start throwing a kid in the situation, is it a little irrational? It could be, right? I mean,
Yeah.
he does lose it a bit, but then when he goes up on the scaffolding, the what do you call it,
Yeah.
the crane scaffold, after this is after he sees, what was her name, Lydia and Martin,
Yeah.
and he goes up there and he tries to play it off like, oh, I'm not bothered. Look at me. I'm Gear. Nothing bothers me. Hey, Kristoffer, are you filming?
Yeah.
And then he climbs up to the top and he starts crying,
Yeah.
right? It's a little bit of reality sitting in for folks who may be in that kind of same situation.
Huh.
Understand, real life, yeah, real life has, don't get me wrong, I love my kids and I love my family, and there's nothing I would trade in the world for it. However, there are some folks when they get into those type of situations that, where I think you mentioned it earlier, where you got to take some responsibility
Yeah.
for your answers, or for your actions.
Sure.
And listen, okay, 16 years old.
Well, we didn't say he
Woo,
was 16 at the time, too. He might have
no,
been
no,
16. Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. She
Yeah.
was 16. Kids, if you happen to be watching, which I hope you don't, because these episodes are not made for kids.
Yeah.
But if you're in those situations where you have kids who are probably around that age and they're getting curious about their stuff, you know what? There is nothing wrong with waiting, because that is one of the storylines that this movie tries to drive home. Yeah, you can grow up with just a little bit. You can be on your own and do things the way you want to, but understand there are consequences for
Yeah.
certain actions.
Yeah, definitely.
Stigging, wow. It took a while to really understand the core of his character, and it
Yeah.
wasn't until when he finally got on the subway, in the last act of the movie, did I realize, bam, he's got agoraphobia, right? That fear of being in unfamiliar places, in strange places, that fear of leaving or change, right? Because in part of the movie, we see that, right? Oh, I think I left the oven on. Hey, I'm going to go check it out and never show up. Okay. Henriette helping him out. I think I didn't lock the door. Oh, I'll take care of it. Gives him that option. But then in the movie, they bring a storyline of where his father sent him a postcard
Yeah.
from Florida, Maryland, or not Florida, Maryland. The hell am I? I have not been drinking.
So much
Florida,
shit, guys. So he says. There's something extra in my
Florida,
coffee this morning.
Florida, of the United States. And he's like, well, your dad's in Florida. Why didn't you go with your dad to Florida? Right. And they never really explain it, but in the third act, when you finally see his agoraphobia really on display, does it click? He didn't go to Florida with his family because he was afraid, right?
Yeah.
It's as you said, he has that definitive phobia of change. He kept talking about how the Torin square or circle, whatever the hell it was. You have everything you have here. Why would you ever want to change? And then at the end, the third act, when he finally acknowledges his fears, this place sucks. I want to get out of here.
Yeah.
And the beautiful part about that storyline is the tale of understanding. You have friends that they're never 100%. They portray 100%. Your
Sure.
job as a friend is to, be flexible enough to understand them, that if you are truly their friend, whatever may be happening, whatever they may be dealing with, whatever they may need help with, you're flexible enough to bend and weave and flow with those changes when they're called for. Kristoffer, in a sense, I think finally understood that when he saw just how bad Stig was struggling on that stage. Hamcam, that's the soccer team. They're a real football team, by the way, right?
Oh, awesome.
I'm not even going to try to pronounce it. Hamcam, right? And that's their mutual stuff. So when they're talking about it on the way home from the studio, one of the beautiful aspects that I think they were trying to portray is, as part of friendships, understanding that sometimes things do change. And as you said, Stig runs into a girl. This cute girl.
Yeah.
Hey, I know you from computer class.
Yeah.
Stig would have never, it's most likely he never would have had that happen had it not been being put into that situation, a little bit changed from his routine, right? So I think that's another underlying subplot that they were trying to put in there. Elizabeth, gold digging garden tool. That's all I want to say.
Yeah.
Did not like her character at all, right? Because she is truly the self-centered girlfriend,
Yes.
which if you were to portray it in real life, it's that self-centered significant other who was like, well, it didn't work out with Nikolai because he did everything at first, but then he put it all on me, and I didn't like having all this extra responsibility, and it wasn't what I thought, so we broke up. But now I'm free. Well, that's hey, that's good for you. I got Henriette over there. That subplot again, revolving around life, friends,
Sure.
friendships, relationship. Everything is never, no, that's the wrong way to. What may be reality sometimes is just perception of a desired reality. He
Yeah.
thought everything was going great. She thought everything was going great. So he's ready to go to the next level.
Yeah.
Apparently, he wasn't mature enough. And that whole story played out again with the keys.
Yeah.
Come up with some better excuses, right? I mean, if you're gonna break with somebody, break up somebody.
Yeah.
Anyway, Henrietta. Wow, Piachetta is. Let's put it this way: when I first saw her on the screen, I swear that was Brooke Langton. She played the head cheerleader in the movie The Replacements.
Oh, okay.
I swear that was Brooke Langton,
There's a
and
one out there.
she's a cutie pie.
Yeah.
But Pia, also being a cutie pie, delivers that subplot of, even though you have close friends, understand sometimes when someone new comes in, there's potential there, right?
Yeah.
And you don't know what that potential is, right? Another potential great friend, which she becomes with Stig, right?
Yeah.
A potential love partner. This whole thing with her and what was her boyfriend's name?
Uh,
Dag.
yeah. I think Dag. Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, kind of reminds me of Joe Dirt, right? Dang! There's a dynamic there where in her subplot, right? Here's someone who was comfortable with her reality, but when she opened up and allowed herself to potentiality, she didn't like it. All those plots again, we've seen in several other movies. It unfortunately within Buddy, to myself being your first time, it was predictable, right?
Sure.
Which had me go back and dig a little bit of what I could find. To which they said, I forgot. I want to say it was the director, Morten Tyldum,
Yeah.
said that they wanted to make this movie, and they got backing from the I believe Norwegian Film Institute
Oh, okay.
to make this movie, right? Because they
Mhm.
were wanting to also showcase Oslo,
Mhm.
right? Believe that's where this was filmed. So it was great to see this, but at the same time, it was kind of a mixed bag, right?
Yeah.
I wanted to see a little bit more out of the Frenches. I'm sorry, when I was jumping off buildings with my buddies and my brother and all this other crazy, we never got a TV deal.
Yeah. Well, did you record it?
Well, I don't think we'd be, but back then it was one of those like 50
Well,
pound,
those
50
80s.
pound you know what I mean? We would have walked to the edge like, ah! It's kind of poignant in the sense where if you look at it, this movie 2003,
Yeah.
look where we're at in 2005.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody's filming everything, which kind of pisses me off. Cool stuff, yeah, I get it, right? A great skyline shot or something really cool in nature, I get it. There's some things that are not for public consumption. The case in
Sure.
point with Gear, right? Even though it was a touching moment and Gear seeing a possibility,
Yeah.
right? It was something not to be shared with anybody else. To what Gear exactly said,
Yeah.
I thought our friendship meant more that you were going to keep this secret. Shit, I mean, it's the Spider-Man thing. With power comes responsibility,
Yeah.
right? He had an opportunity. They're getting famous. I think they even said, some of these, these kids wanted my autograph. How cool is that? We hate to be cliche about it, but friendships in life are circular, right? Your good friends, your greatest friends are always going to stick around. And
Yeah. Absolutely.
you're not always going to agree to everything, which I thought they portrayed really great in this, right?
Yeah.
Not even as much as they wanted to be in the cleanest apartment in all of Norway. It wasn't always clean of a friendship, right? Because there
Yeah.
was some struggle, there was some heartache, there was some, let's just say, underhandedness in
Yeah.
how they handled each other's personal matters. Let's just say, I thought the movie, even though it's only available on DVD, I thought the movie itself was shot very well, especially the play between the characters, right? The different perspective shifts. Seeing some of Oslo, if the movie was supposed to be more about showing Oslo, I wish they showed a little bit more of it.
Yeah.
I think I've seen more subway time in this movie than I have in most recent stuff. Overall, I mean, it's not a bad film.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for me, because of its predictability, right? It's kind of a one and done. I've seen
Yeah.
it. Do I think I'll go back and watch it? I don't know.
Yeah.
Ask me maybe, but I'm not going to go out of my way,
Yeah.
right? Versus gung ho, right? Ho, gung ho. Here we go. I think if it had just been a little bit more about friendship in Oslo, right? Not about the friendships within Oslo,
Yeah.
I think it would have had a little bit more success. Don't get me wrong. It
Yeah.
did get a lot of kudos. It did get a lot of positive reviews, which is
Yeah.
great. I guess you do want to say it's kind of a romantic comedy
It is kind of.
slash comedy slash docudrama. I,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like it couldn't settle on a persona for itself.
I see. I like
But
strength.
I'm sorry, you know what I mean? What'd you say?
To me, that's the strength that it does all those things.
Okay, but see, to me, but then those moments where it really hones in.
Yeah.
Stig he is about to really break down on that stage. Kristoffer finally understands his friend Stig means to him. This fame, this fortune, this TV show, F that.
Yeah.
Dude, hum calm,
Yeah.
hum
Absolutely.
calm, hum calm. I forget the rest of the words, but that's
Yeah.
how it kind of starts off. That's what friends do, right?
No,
I don't
definitely.
care what's going on. And I've actually been in those situations where, I don't care what your girlfriend says. I don't care what your parents say. This is what we need to get you to do. Come on, dude. We need to get you back up, get you cleaned up, get you back home, get through this, right?
Yeah.
I
No,
mean, who
definitely.
cares about all that stuff? I'll deal with the cops later. More on that later. But okay, we're gonna go around and round about these friendships, and it's kind of funny, to which I'm gonna be blunt.
Yeah.
I didn't really laugh except for like one time at the end,
Yeah.
right? Which kind of hurt my feelings in the sense is like I like what I'm seeing, but I'm not feeling what I'm seeing.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
No, I get what you're saying. I mean, completely understand your point of
Yeah.
view.
So let me just wrap up this, right? Buddy is not a bad film. The subplots, the writing, the characters, I think are all really well done,
Yeah.
right? But it's done in a predictable manner, right? In the
Yeah.
sense of, surprise me just a little bit. Surprise me just a little bit. I wanted to see the end where I kind of knew it was happening. But yeah, my understanding is a lot of Norwegian films don't have those happy type endings. This is like a
Sure.
rare one of those
Rare
exceptions.
occurrences.
Yeah, and that's where I laughed, right? It's like here she is on a boat going for months, and when she jumps off the boat, she holds her nose. You're going onto the damn ocean where shit could go sideways, and you're gonna hold your nose while you jump off the boat. Independent films really
Sure.
trying to go out there a little bit too predictable for me.
Yeah.
The characters a little bit too cliched, with two exceptions. Okay,
Mm.
Gear,
Mm.
right? Gear, I found very, uh, and I say relatable, not in the sense that I had a kid out there like, hey, oh my God, are you my kid? No, I didn't have that type of situation.
Yeah,
But that situation where you want to live life by your own rules, and I don't
yeah,
want anything to mess that up, but then here comes something to mess it up. Anders Bosmo, who played Stig, oh, wow. Really weird. I thought he was just weird, right? You know how you have some of those friends who have those like little ticks or nuances to their personality, like,
yeah.
he's trying to step. That's a big ass bottle of Coke. Get your ass out there, go get it. But he couldn't even do that, right?
No, I
The
get it.
subway scene. I get it. Maybe I thought he had a fear of subways, which is something you folks are gonna have to Google because I'll be damned if I know what the hell it is.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until the very, very end does it really come out that it's agoraphobia. Probably the only character I truly, except for Henriette. I won't tell you what I was feeling, but it was somewhere south of the belt line. Let's just say that. But Sig was one of those characters I sympathized with because he doesn't have a lot of friends. The friends he does have a lot of love and admiration for them to
Yeah,
the point where his, let's just say disorder, his anxiety disorder, that cripples him in a lot of ways.
yeah,
He's willing to endure up to a point that really makes him uncomfortable to keep those friends,
yeah.
right? And I think that was one of the beautiful things about Buddy was the range of friendships, right? The back and forth, the to and fro of what it means to be a friend in these times. And again, being in 2003, it is totally different than what it is nowadays.
Oh yeah,
Because
totally.
holy crap, today, sweet meteor of death, sometimes pops into the old brain pan right once in a while. But
Yeah,
it's one of those things. I think as audiences, if you like independent films, this is one of those you should watch,
yeah.
right?
No, I definitely think it's.
Right. And you make up your own mind, right? Because maybe it does speak to you. Unfortunately, in this instance, Buddy itself, not taking away anything. I didn't
Yeah,
hate anything. I think you said it. I didn't hate anything, but I couldn't find myself loving this. There's a lot to like, very, very little to love.
yeah,
Even though, even though I thought it was a really well made, put together
yeah.
movie.
Mhm. And so for me, I saw this because I had a subscription to this film movement company like years ago because I live in a place where you don't have you only have two multiplexes. They're not playing independent films unless they get nominated for an Academy Award. Didn't have access to a lot of that stuff. And I saw that film for the first time when I got it in my hands in my DVD, and I really connected with it. Now, to your point, it definitely that romantic aspect with Henrietta. Obviously, you definitely see that coming a mile away. So I can totally agree with you that there is a level of predictability. And while I've never gone through, thankfully, not knocking a girl up or or having gone through some of the adventures these guys have gone with, or they stuff they've dealt with in life, I really connect with this film, and I don't say I love it, but I do like it a lot. And I guess the reason I like it so much is that I think, in my opinion, I think even Kristoffer, but all the characters, I think you see an evolution. I think you see an evolution as the film goes on with the dynamic between the characters, with the growth with the characters. Even, someone like Kristoffer, who, yeah, he's fucking up and he's in not thinking through things like handing the footage over to that guy without going, oh shit, I forgot it has that clip of Deer with his son, like things like that. I do think that there's an evolution, and I do think by the end, even before the end, I think he's learning things. I think that he's realizing like, wow, this is part of becoming an adult is like dealing with these different things and like, making mistakes, like taking Elizabeth back after she basically broke up with him, but he's taking her back because he just got his heart broken from Henrietta. And, like we all talk about learning from our mistakes, but yet sometimes at our weak points, we make the same mistakes over and over. And hopefully you get to a point where you're strong enough not to do that. but we have our moments like where you're just feeling like shit and you're like, okay, this is probably not a smart move, but I'm going to do it anyway because at this moment it just feels good. The reality is we're human beings, and we, even though we have emotions and we have intelligence, we don't always do the smart thing. We react to the emotional thing, not even because he wants the sex with her, but just because he just finally had something with this girl Henriette. But now he's going, you know what? That's taken from me now, and that was something really good. This girl right here, maybe she can fill that void and give me something that I was missing. You know what I mean? Like, for me, this film, it's definitely not a perfect film, but I did pick it because like I said, I really like the characters and all their dynamics. I like what each character is going through. I like the idea of, even a screw up figuring it out at the end. You know what I mean? I like the idea of you seeing someone like Geir who could have easily just again continued to be a screw up. Yeah, he fucked up at a certain point and he didn't take responsibility for a kid. But you know what? You can. It's easy to, and myself included. Sometimes it's easy to go, oh, everything's black and white. We all know if you've lived to a certain point in your life, nothing's black and white. You can say things are black and white, but nothing is black and white in life. And he takes things and he changes things. You know what I mean? He evolves as a character. He grows. There's growth as a human being. For me, stuff like that works. The idea of Kristoffer might take him towards till the end of the movie, but yeah, he does learn. He does learn that like, hey, I'm doing some of these things I'm doing are stupid, and I'm just not thinking them 100% through. But he does learn not to be that person. He does evolve. They all learn a lesson. They all lean on each other and that the friendships that they have. And they all realize that, like, hey, yeah, we've all made mistakes. We've all done some stupid things. We've all hurt some people. We are learning from it. Can't take back the things that we did. All you can do is learn from it and move forward. And I think for me, I think that just hit me at a point in my life when I first watched it, because I think some of those themes really are important to me. I think the themes of friendship, like you could easily have a friend that you're consider super close with, you could tell them to go fuck off and you could be pissed off at each other. But if it's a friendship that you really care about, you're going to learn to figure it out. You're not going to let something just divide it in half. Even if it's something really stupid, even if it's something that was hurtful towards someone, you're going to figure it out and you're going to grow from it. And hopefully your friendship will be stronger. For me, I just like the evolution. I like the fact that people did grow. I like the fact that he finally did find out what was important. And like you said, I face it, like he screwed up with Elizabeth, and as far as not wanting keys to her apartment, and that was his fault. But also he realized that like this girl is also very superficial. This girl is all about what she can get out of something, or what she can figure something out to make things better for her. But she's not necessarily a good person. And when he gets to Henriette, they both have their baggage. They both have their issues. They both been through some stuff. They both made some mistakes. They were both hurt by people, which is why she's with that guy, Dag, who's not really that great. Not that he's a bad guy, but he's just kind of like the stand-in, And I like, by the fact that all of the ending's predictable, I do, and it does kind of tie up in a neat little bow, fits into a lot of those like romantic comedy cliches. And I get that completely. But I do like the fact that by the time we get to the end of the film, we realize that all these characters have gone on a journey and all these characters have grown in some way. And they've realized the things that are important. They've realized having good friends that you can count on, and then they know that they can count on you, knowing that you're learning from your fuck ups and you're becoming a better person, and just realizing what you're really looking for as far as a partner goes. I think there's a lot of lessons there. And yeah, we've all seen things that have kind of hit these points home before, because let's say film has been around for hundreds of, it's been around for a long time. Film has been around for a long time. And you're always going to touch on themes that have been done before. For me, I think there were enough things about this that showed their own unique way of doing it. You know what I mean? I just connect with this film for those reasons, and for me, it was interesting because, like I said, years later when I saw like Imitation Game and Passengers, I was like, oh, that name sounds kind of familiar. The director, this is the guy from that little film that I saw years ago. So it was nice having that little tie in there, that little connection. So for me, the film works, and definitely, like to your point, like I said, I can definitely recognize its flaws, because it has some. But I think it's a journey worth taking. I think it's a film worth watching. Like you said, I think the audience are going to watch it and make up their own mind, and take what they will or won't will from it. Because there are, like I said, there are things that I think that are really good about it, things that are inherent flaws. But I think it's one that you're not going to normally see, and I think it's got some interesting things to say. I don't think it's overly profound, but I think it does have some messages that are worth saying, and I think it's an entertaining hour. I think hour and 40 minutes, hour and 35 minutes. So I would definitely check it out. And while there is no Blu-ray release or it's not streaming, you can literally pick it up for I think under $10. So it's pretty cheap, and you get a cool little short film. Those are my thoughts on it. As usual, it's always a pleasure talking film with you, and I'm always glad that you were able to see this one. With that, guys, next week we're going to be talking about 2 comic books. We'll get back to our comic book episodes, guys. We're going to be talking about a comic book you picked, Green Lantern Darkest Night,
Blackest Night.
Blackest Night. Excuse me, I apologize. Blackest Night. And that collects the first 6 issues.
8 issues.
Oh, first 8 issues. Now, is that the entire, or isn't there a whole wasn't there a bunch of side books too that come up with that too, or no?
Yeah. So Jeff Johns. Yeah. So Jeff Johns starts with the Blackest Night, which is over 8 issues. After Blackest Night, then starts a whole slew of other sub stories called Brightest Day. Right. So
that's what I thought. I thought there was a big arcing story, like with that Flashpoint thing. There was like 8 graphic novels.
Yeah.
Something like ridiculous.
So with Blackest Night, I said, let's talk about that. Cause we are getting kind of into Halloween. So, and definitely. This does have, it has its take. Marvel did Marvel Zombies, which was, I don't get me wrong. I love Arthur C. M's covers for all the comics, but whatever. Yeah. This was a little bit interesting take because now this is, Green Lantern, and with all the other Lantern Corps in the various colors. It was an interesting take, and I thought it was really well done by Jeff Johns. Yeah, we're going to talk about that, and very cool. We're going to talk about Barbaric, right?
Yeah. It's an indie little comic. I think there's maybe 5 or 6 graphic novels at this point, but we're going to be talking about the first graphic novel, which collects issues 1 through 3. So it's a barbarian comic book with fantasy elements, and if you like stuff with barbarians. And it's got some fun humor in it. It's a fun little read. I started reading it about a month or 2 ago, and I'm about 4 graphic novels in. So I think it's an interesting one that most people don't know about. So I think it's worth checking out. So
absolutely,
that's next week, and then at that point we'll be heading into October, guys. So we got some fun choices waiting ahead for you too, and I can't wait to share all of them with you. So I want to thank you guys again for all you tuning in and listening. Thank you, Mr. Korean Cool, for again joining me for another episode. As usual, always awesome.
Thank you.
And before we head off, I guess we'll do a quick shout out to some stuff people should be watching or listening to. We got some podcasts like Not a Bomb with Brad and Troy. Each week, they look at films that were either a critical failure or a commercial failure, and they decide whether they really deserved to be either of those things. And that's a great show. So check out Brad and Troy. We have Watch Skip Plus with Jose and Mike. They just released an episode today on that Jordan Peele produced horror film Him. So I've heard not so good things, but it's an episode worth hearing them talk about. The conversation between those guys is always great. So check out Watch Skip Plus with Jose and Mike the Wildebeest. Of course, we have The Gentleman's Guide to Midnight Cinema with Sam and Will. Always a great show, and this is, I think, their last episode is releasing tomorrow, where they're celebrating queer cinema, and of course they're having our friend Mr. Jose. Speaking of Jose, Mr. Cupcake himself has been popping on, so check out Jose and Sam and Will and Gentleman's Guide to Midnight Cinema. We have Rob and Joe with Caliber 9 from Outer Space. Each week they bring us a double feature, an A and a B movie, and they've always got some fun goodies for us, so check out Rob and Joe. And then, of course, we have Raiders of the Podcast with Tyler, Dave, Craig, and Kevin. And each week, they bring us 2 different films. Sometimes they bring us 3 different films. So check them out. Always a great show. And finally, we've got Harry Scott Solomon, who is on a hiatus, but he has Death by DVD. And he has a slew of back episodes you can check out. So those are all some shows you guys should check out. And I want to thank everybody again. I hope everybody has a great weekend, and we will see you next week.